Thank you so much. I'm Oliver Percovich. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Skateistan, which simply uses skateboarding as a hook to connect children to educational opportunities in Afghanistan. A little bit of my personal background. I was born in Melbourne on September 11th, 1974, and I grew up in Papua New Guinea between the ages of 6 and 10. I was in Mount Hagen in the Highlands and also in Leh, and it was a very idyllic childhood, running around barefoot with children from lots of different countries. My best friends were Filipino, German, New Zealander and an Australian. I moved back to Australia when I was 10, and I went to 2 different state schools and then 4 years at a Melbourne Rudolf Steiner school. I studied environmental management, and then I did an honours degree in chemistry. I then got a job as a researcher in social science and worked in emergency management and worked on fires and floods with a worldwide known professor. I ran an organic sourdough bread business for a little while. Then I gave all of that up. I moved to Alice Springs and I worked with Indigenous communities as a health worker. Then I let that go and I followed my, at the time, girlfriend to Hungary, where she was studying, and ultimately ended up in Afghanistan when she got a job there as a researcher. And I was also I was interested to get a job as a researcher in Afghanistan, but I didn't have a job at the start, and not having a job meant that I was free to roam the streets. And I walked around Kabul. I was fascinated to go down to the bazaars, to walk down little lanes, and everywhere I went, people were very surprised to see me as a foreigner walking down the street, but they were so friendly. Everywhere I went, Afghans were just inviting me in, come in for a cup of tea. And inevitably I'd go in for a cup of tea because I wanted to meet people and find out what made Afghans ticked. I thought it was an amazing place. I later found out that you're supposed to be asked 3 times before you say yes to an invitation. It's just polite to ask everybody to offer a cup of tea, but I jumped at the opportunity. In 2007, there'd been a lot of social change, especially from the time of when the Taliban was in power. When the Taliban was in power, there was no televisions, there was no internet, there were no mobile phones, there were no radios. Sports were even difficult to take part in, and there were real fashion police that would beat you in the street if your beard wasn't long enough or if you weren't wearing a burqa as a female. A friend of mine, Shams, who lived in Kabul during this time, related a story to me about how his father was a tailor, and they had smuggled in a VHS cassette of the movie The Titanic in some tailor's cloth from Pakistan, and they would secretly watch it on weekends. So they'd pull the television and the video player out from underneath where it was hidden away, and they'd board up the windows and they'd close all the curtains, and they would, on very, very low volume, listen to watch the movie. And they'd stop it halfway through, walk around the block, make sure nobody was spying on them, go back and then watch the second half of the movie. And they would do that for every weekend. They would watch it 2 or 3 times for 6 months before they could get then another tape in. It was really something that was hard to comprehend as an Australian. The movie Titanic has actually had quite quite a cultural effect on Kabul. It really, the DVD bazaar at the moment is still called the Titanic Bazaar, and ice cream sellers entice people to buy ice creams on their little push carts with the theme song from Titanic by Celine Dion. It's horrible. Popular culture in Kabul is a mishmash. So there are influences from Pakistan and India in terms of music and film. So Bollywood is very popular, and many taxi drivers cruise around in their little yellow Corollas playing Bollywood theme tracks at full volume. Iran plays a role in terms of fashion, and especially boys' hairstyles. And they're really quite outlandish. When I first arrived in Kabul, I saw on television they had a fashion show, and there were a whole lot of men strutting down, sort of peacock-like, with their amazing hairdos and long pointy shoes. I asked somebody, when do the women walk down the aisle and down the catwalk? And then I realised that I was in Afghanistan, and it was only men that were in fashion shows. It wasn't possible for women to take part in something like that. From the age of puberty onwards, boys and girls in Afghanistan are separated unless you don't come into contact with the opposite sex unless they're part of your family. And I brought a skateboard along with me to Kabul, and I would skateboard with boys and girls in the street, and it was possible to have, it was something that was very new, nobody had seen it before, and there was a fountain, an empty fountain that the Russians had built when they were there. So there were the big Soviet apartment blocks, and next to it a fountain that's probably found all over Russia as well. And it was a dish shape, and it was perfect for skateboarding in. And I ran these little skateboard sessions with boys and girls. And I gave the girls and the boys separate times, but I engineered it so that the girls would have double the amount of time on the skateboard than the boys did. And so naturally they became better at skateboarding than the boys. And then ran skateboard competitions where I pitted the boys and the girls against. They were mixed competitions, and with different age groups. And up to the age of 12, the girls beat the boys every time, and the boys only won the age groups over the age of 12 because there were no girls to compete against. It made me think, perhaps if it was possible to build an indoor facility with only female present, only with female instructors, it would be possible for the girls over the age of 13 to also take part in these skateboard sessions. I really believed that change in Afghanistan had to happen through Afghans. No foreigner, myself, no foreigners had been able to really influence Afghanistan in a big way or change the country. It was really up to Afghans themselves to make that change and be that change. And it was through youth that it would be possible. There's been over $500 billion spent in Afghanistan by the international community since 2001, and there's not that much to show for it. And to solve really complex problems, Afghans, and especially the youth, needed education and a skill set to then... They needed creativity, and to build creativity to address these sort of problems. But Afghan school, primary school, goes for 2 to 3 hours a day, And it's based on rote learning. If you're only going to school 2 hours a day and all you're doing is memorising things, it's not really giving you the skills to solve complex problems. I thought skateboarding is a creative outlet. Perhaps if I could link it with quality education, that would be something that would create a solution. I pitched this idea of building an indoor skate park education complex to the aid community, and it really fell on deaf ears for about a year and a half. There was grassroots support from around the world. There were fundraisers in Australia, and the skateboard community gave us equipment to be able to skate with. But there really wasn't that much money to back this sort of idea. But after about a year and a half, the Canadian government offered $5,000 and to back this idea. And so I put in a proposal for $15,000, which they then supported. And very fast, other support came then rolling in, because that initial somebody believed in it, somebody backed it, and the Norwegians doubled the amount that the Canadians had pledged. The Danes then doubled the Norwegians. The Germans then matched the Danes. Nobody wanted to be left out. And the Afghan Olympic Committee gave us a piece of land, and we ended up building the largest indoor sports facility in the whole country. And it was a skate park for kids between the age of 5 and 17. So that was made possible through an Afghan-American building company that put in $150,000 of their own money, and all together we were able to do something that would normally cost about $1 million to build. We opened the facility in October 2009, and about 300 students were registered straight away, and there was quite a large percentage of girls as part of that. And the kids did 1 hour in the skate park and 1 hour in the classrooms. Now, what we were doing in the classrooms was, at the start, English and Dari lessons, and we very soon saw that mixing of the different social backgrounds and the different ethnic backgrounds in the skate park was dividing in the classroom, because some children were able to, the kids that were richer, came from richer families, they were able to write emails in English, and the poorer kids had never actually sat down on a chair and a table and held a pen in their hand before. They couldn't write their own name in Dari, one of the local languages. So we very quickly changed the curriculum to a much more, basically used artistic mediums. And that would then help the accessibility. That would create a level playing field. So we did photography, we did drawing and painting, we did theatre plays, we did puppet plays, we made sculptures. And the children used these mediums to tell stories, and the stories they told were really quite gutsy. It wasn't, they didn't, when they did a drawing of a policeman taking a bribe at a checkpoint. When they did a play about forced marriage. When they did a puppet play about plundered treasures from Afghanistan during the war, and the resources of Afghanistan being lost to greed. And we organised exchanges where the children then were able to do video exchanges and Skypes with children around the world. They connected with schools in Peru, in Colombia, in the US, in Germany, even connected with a couple of Australian schools. And it was really, I thought it was important for them to realise that they were so similar to kids around the world, and that other kids could also see how similar the children in Afghanistan were to them. Since 2009, there's been a lot of success stories. Skateistan students have gone on to meet Ban Ki-moon. They've done TED Talks in Kabul. They've even done skateboard building projects together with Lakota Indians in the US, and the results of that collaboration is going to be shown at the Smithsonian. The success has come through youth ownership. Because the programs are so life-changing for the kids themselves, they then want to become instructors. And the Kabul facility is now 100% run by Afghan staff. There's no internationals there at all. This is after 5 years and a lot of work. But 70% of the Skateistan staff are former students themselves. And we have the aim to do that at all of the project sites that we have. Having youth take on leadership roles really helps the sustainability of any sort of project. Another success story is 16-year-old Medina. She joined Skateistan at age 12. At age 13, she was the same as about 50% of Skateistan students, in that she was working on the street to help her family and supplement income. And at age 13, she became a volunteer at Skateistan, which was taking away valuable time where she could have been earning money in terms of in the way that the family would view it. But she volunteered to become a skateboard instructor, and a year later she was she had a job with Skateistan doing art classes as well as the skateboard classes. That same year, she represented Afghan youth in Afghan Parliament. So this is a street working girl, two years later, representing Afghan youth in Parliament. When the TEDx Kabul event was in Afghanistan, she was the youngest speaker at the TEDx event, and she was one of only 3 Afghan females talking at the event. 2 weeks ago, she just came back from Medellin, Colombia, where she was an Afghan representative at the World Urban Forum that had 22,000 delegates there, and it was run by UN Habitat. So this was the first time that she'd ever been on a plane, and all of a sudden she's there representing Afghan youth. Skateistan is now ranked in the top 100 NGOs worldwide. We've won 2 Peace and Sport Awards from the Prince of Monaco. Last year we won the UNICEF Education Through Sport Award. But Skateistan's mission hasn't always been well understood. And this is a dialogue that occurred in the Australian Senate after AusAid supported a cultural arts exchange. In this dialogue, Peter Baxter is the director of AusAid. Senator Johnston: okay, the Scat Hey Stan. Senator Stevens: it's called Skateistan. Senator Johnston: this is a skateboard performance art type thing. Head of AusAid: skateboarding and youth theatre. It is a fairly unique approach to engaging Afghani youth. Senator Johnston: have we had anybody from AusAid go and watch his performance? Head of AusAid: not that I'm aware of. Senator Johnston: what does that actually, physically, factually mean? We have people holding a skateboard performance? Senator Stevens: the project description is about using the internet, so I'm sure that we'll be seeing Skyping and those kinds of conversations, YouTube videos, performances across both parts of the world. Senator Kroger: Mr. Baxter, just on that particular one, we have AusAid officials in Afghanistan. Head of AusAid: yes, we do. Senator Kroger: so rather than having a third-hand account through journalists, wouldn't you consider not having one, if not more, of those AusAid officials on the ground actually go and visit it and see what is happening. That's the end of the dialogue. So AusAid ended up visiting for the first time after that exchange. I think we were too small. Sorry. So since then we've expanded to Cambodia. In Cambodia we've got 250 students. In northern Afghanistan we built a facility out of 42 shipping containers, one of the buildings just out of 42 shipping containers. We've actually, we're entered into a worldwide design award for that one as well. We've got the capacity for up to 1,000 children weekly at the facility in northern Afghanistan. And we've just started a new project in South Africa. And in South Africa, we're supported by the South African artist, Robin Road. And Robin Road has now enlisted the support of Paul McCarthy. And Paul McCarthy did 80 joint exhibitions with Andy Warhol, so he's no lightweight. So we're really excited about the increase of support from all sorts of different sides. The skateboarder Tony Hawk is supporting the projects in South Africa as well as Cambodia, and they're the first projects that he supports outside, first skateboard projects that he supports outside of the US. So, as many of you know, in Afghanistan, the international military presence is going down, and interest is also waning in Afghanistan, and aid commitments to the country are also being cut, causing many non-profit projects to shut down. And we really want to continue our work for at least the next 20 years. And it's going to be interesting to see how that can happen. And we really hope that people around the world will continue to believe in Afghan youth, and so that they can have a bright future. And if you'd like to know more about Skateistan, there's a book that we produced, and 100% of the proceeds from the book goes to Skateistan because it was sponsored. And we've got a website and Facebook, and we do all of the different social media such as Instagram and Twitter. And the website is a great source of it. So thank you very much for your attention.